This is the Get Real podcast with your host, Morgan Charleigh. We're going to talk about all the things: business, parenting, and all the other things that I'm barely surviving. On this podcast, we're going to pick the brains of professionals, hear some inspirational stories, get advice from friends. We're going to learn from one another so that we can live better, so that we can do better. And I have to say, I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in. Welcome back to Get Real with Morgan. Okay, guys, I have to tell y'all what I did. I recorded half of this episode with my microphone not plugged in. If you've been following, if you've been listening, if you have heard the crock pot story, apparently this is a Morgan issue. This is a chronic Morgan issue. Finish the task. Finish the task, Morgan. Plug in the crock pot, plug in the microphone. These things do not work if they are not plugged in. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, anyways, I just had to tell y'all that because this, here we are. We're going to get real. And this is really, really me. So, anyways, welcome back. If you're new here, just bear with me. Equipment, functionality, operating errors here. We're gonna get there. So if you're new here, if you're watching the video, first of all, that is new. We are new to this. Normally, in the past, it has just been me and my microphone and no visual here. So maybe I was in my pajamas, maybe the house was a wreck behind me. So I am working on this whole face-to-face interaction and getting our flow down. Microphone, plugging her in. We're working on it. Okay. So, anyways, I was laughing though because it made me really think of, I came across this young adult. I keep saying kid, but he's 19. Brylan Hollyhand. Is that his name? Brylan Hollyhand. And let's see. Yeah, Brylan Hollyhand. Okay. So, came across this kid. Well, he's 19. But in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death and all the tributes to him, I see Brylan Hollyhand's posts. And so I start following along and start doing kind of a deep dive as I do. And this 19-year-old was so impressive to me. Just so well-spoken, out there, first of all, on social media is enough, but he's on Fox. He is picking up where Charlie left off, going to travel to colleges, talking to people, I would say outside of his league, as far as age-wise and things, talking to adults. But then again, he's 19. If you're of age to vote, you should be of age to have developed your beliefs. You should be able to talk about them with your peers, and your peers are your voting neighbors. So, anyways, I'm getting off topic here. I came across a video that he had done where it's like a 2-camera thing, it's showing him recording his podcast, or maybe he was on an interview, I'm not really sure, but it showed him videoing. And typically in all of his videos, he's in his suit and he's got shelving behind him that's intentionally designed, intentionally styled with books and a football or baseball, anyways, it's very nicely decorated. He is put together. Well, in this particular video, you're seeing behind the scenes of what's actually going on, which is, it looks like he's in his closet, first of all. Okay. So right off camera, you can see clothes. It looks like maybe a closet. And then you see that his iPad is on a stand. Nothing fancy, no fancy cameras, no camera crew, nobody in there helping him. It is his iPad on a tripod type stand that is on top of your dining room chairs. It is actually propped up with a book. I think it might have been a Bible. It was a thick book. So all of that is going on. And then, like I said, he's got his button up suit jacket and gym shorts. And I was just laughing because that is, like I said, this is new here, the videoing. Normally, it was just heard, not seen. So I might have been in my pajamas, maybe not. The house may have been a wreck. More than likely was. And I was just laughing because that was such just a reality versus what you see. And I was just really impressed with this kid. Just to be so young and to have so much strength in what you believe, know your beliefs, and holding so strong to them. And I feel like that is a huge, huge factor in developing confidence in our kids, in ourselves. I feel like it is something that is not focused on enough. And it made me kind of go back to the conversation I was having with my son, Knight. So I'm forever asking him, "Hey, have you made any friends? Do we have any new friends?" He's just a kid that just doesn't really have a big group of friends. And on Pour It Out with Morgan and Lindsay, we have actually talked about this before. We've talked about letting our kids be them, and not every kid needs a big group of friends, and not every kid is going to follow the crowd. Some are going to stand out by themselves, which is completely fine if we are giving them the confidence to do that. If we are giving them the confidence in themselves to stand out of the crowd. And so besides the reality versus what you see on screen, this kid, the way that he is stepping out, the way that he is doing things that typical 19-year-olds are not doing, the way that he is standing on his own voice and beliefs firmly, it just shows such the foundation that must be created. And it made me really think about, what is it? What is it that creates confidence in our kids and ourselves? When does that start? When is the appropriate age or place to really hone in and start training? Because confidence isn't something that you're just born with. 35 years I've been alive, I've seen confident people. The way that they hold themselves, the way that they talk unapologetically, the way that they can almost convince others that they're right. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But the way that they say it, the way that they say what they're saying, it's the confidence that sells it. So when do we start doing that? Growing up, I was always the quiet kid. I would get embarrassed so easily. I never was the one that would raise her hand in class. Never would speak out. Somewhere along the way that changed, obviously. And I do look back, and I do see some very intentional things. Not intentional at the time, I didn't know I was doing them, but there were some turning points that made the confidence. Because, like I said, it's not something that you're just born with. It's something that you have to create and nurture. It comes from practice. Repetition is something that you learn. And so thinking about that, and then having this conversation with Knight about friends, and worrying that, is he lonely? Obviously, it breaks a parent's heart to think about their child being on the out, being outside of the circle. But sometimes being outside the circle is okay. a lot of times being outside the circle is okay, because inside the circle is not always where good happens. Okay, so here's the deal. This podcast, it's for all of us. It's for all of us to learn from one another. So I want to know, what do you want to know? What topics do you want to hear? What guests would you like to hear from? What do you want to learn next? Head over to morgancharleigh.com and drop me a line. Fill out the little form. And I promise I'll do my best to cover that topic or find that person that can. And remember, you can catch us here every week. Be sure to hit the little subscribe button so you never miss a beat. But I started to think, when, as parents, when is the right time? I think it's now. I think it's early. I think it's in elementary school. I think having real talks with your kids about good and bad, right and wrong, pointing out real life examples of the Bible today and how they're applied, and doing it over and over and over and over again now is where it should start. And I don't think a lot of us do that. I think talking to our children about things that will happen, preparing them, and really discussing what their thoughts are on it before it happens. I mentioned one story about not wearing a shirt that came with a Halloween costume. It was like an 80s theme Halloween costume. So it was a t-shirt and it had these vibrant colors and squiggly design on it. It was a costume. But one day, for no good reason at all, he decides he wants to wear it to school. He walks out. And I'm like, okay. So are you going to wear that shirt today? He's like, yes, ma'am. I like this shirt. And I'm like, okay, I like that shirt too. But let's talk about it. So that shirt is not a typical shirt that kids your age are going to wear, unless they're dressing up. He says, I know, but I like this shirt. I said, okay. I said, well, then if you're going to wear that shirt, then you're going to wear it and you're going to be confident in it. And if somebody has something to say about it, if somebody wants to make fun of it, we're not going to get our feelings hurt over it. Because we know right now, I'm telling you, that's not a normal shirt for a kid your age to wear. I'm not saying it's a wrong shirt. I'm not saying you can't wear the shirt. I'm saying you can be whoever you want to be. You can dress however you want to dress. But if somebody else has something to say about it, we have to be confident in what we're doing. Because we're not gonna be sad over it. And he understood. Not too long ago, we were in the car. This is the story that I was referring to when I was asking him about friends. I was asking him probably the 200th time about if he has any friends, if he's made any new friends. He's like, well, I mean, no, not really. I'm like, well, do you talk to people? And he's like, well, no, ma'am. I'm like, we have to start there, Knight. You have to talk to people. If you want to make friends, it's kind of a deal breaker if you don't talk to people. And I asked him why he doesn't talk to people. He said, I'm just shy. I think I'm just too shy. I just get really nervous. And what if they think I'm stupid? What if I get embarrassed? What if they embarrass me? And then they tell their friends, and then their friends don't like me either, and then the whole school's talking about me. And okay, I tend to be a blunt person. Sometimes my words fly out, especially my facial expressions are gonna come before I have the time to correct them. And so my response was very, I guess, impulsive. Watching my kid's brain spiral like this. And I stopped him right in the middle of like, well, and then their friends won't like me, and then the whole school is gonna. And I said, no, no, bud. Nobody cares that much about you. Okay, okay, I know. That was harsh, and that's not what I meant, but it is what I meant. What I meant was, of course, I love you, buddy. I'm your mom. Family and friends obviously love you and that care a tremendous amount about you. But we're talking about these people at school, your classmates, your peers. They don't care that much. You know what they're worried about? Themselves. And that is the harsh truth. That is the harsh truth. They're not worried about you. You will not take up space in their thoughts tomorrow because you said something off the wall today, because you tripped in the hall today, because you did something that embarrassed you today. They're not going to think about that because they're worried about them. And I know that that's harsh, but once I realized that myself, that's when it became okay. It's okay to mess up because nobody's going to even think about it tomorrow. We're all human and we're all going to mess up. And funny, but another piece of developing this confidence for myself came from a children's book. Not when I was a kid. I came across it like as an adolescent, maybe. Everybody poops. I know. But here we are. Everybody poops. Normalizing people, bringing them down to your level. It doesn't matter how much money they have. It doesn't matter how popular they are in school. It doesn't matter. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. We are all on the same playing field. So it's okay. It's okay to mess up. Because they're going to mess up too. And then at the end of the day, they're really not that worried about you. They're really not that focused on what you are doing. Okay, so this is not all just made up for you guys. There's actually a basis for what I'm saying. And now, yes, I was on this track with the Everybody Poops book before I ever even learned this, but the spotlight effect. There's actually scientific basis here for what I'm talking about right now. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't learn it until psychology class in college, but it clicked then. Oh my gosh, like started with me from a book, Everybody Poops, realizing that we're all the same. And then realizing that nobody is really that focused on me, because even in a huge classroom, a small percentage of those people are actually even listening to me if I am the one speaking. So here comes this study. It was done in the 90s by Gilovich and Savitsky. Such a simple study here, okay? But they took a group of college kids and put them in this, we're just going to say a cringeworthy t-shirt, very like out there t-shirt, cringeworthy at the time. And they had them walk around campus to see who would notice them in this terrible, terrible eye-catching t-shirt. When they came back and they took a poll, and the students wearing the t-shirts, they thought about 50% of the people that they passed saw the shirts. Throughout the study, and you can go back and look it up and see how they did it and all the things, but the bottom line, the result came out that actually 25% of people even notice that they were wearing the t-shirts. That is the spotlight effect. We think we have the spotlight on us, and we think people are paying attention to it, to what we're doing and what we're saying in our life. We think that people are paying attention to the way our kids are dressed and the cars we drive and all these things. They're not. They're looking at the way their kids are dressed and what they're driving and what they're doing. It's a spotlight effect. It's proven. So when you really realize and really accept it, people just don't care that much about you. Sounds terrible. We should do better. But then you have the freedom and the lack of judgment to do and say the things that you were going to do and say. So having that conversation with Knight, and I'll just have to say, there was a real life application of this that happened literally like 2 days after. He sees me drink my coffee every morning on the way to school and work, and he decided he wanted to have a cup of coffee. So I was like, okay, sure. So he makes his coffee, and we have our little throwaway Chinette to-go cups. Well, I make it back home from work that day, and he came and sat down next to me, and he was like, oh my gosh, Mom, my stomach has been horrible all day. And I couldn't help but giggle. I'm like, oh no, are you okay? And he's like, the coffee. I never go to the bathroom at school. And I had to go like 3 times today because of the coffee. And then I was in art class. I'd already left the class one time because I had to poot. I'm trying to be respectful here. And he said, and then, I was gonna try to leave again, and I couldn't make it. And I did it in the classroom. And I said, oh no. I said, well, was it loud? And he was like, yes, it was. And I was like, oh, are you embarrassed? And he was like, I guess. I said, did anybody say anything? He said, not really, but I just said, excuse me, and kept drawing. So I was tickled about this. I was just so tickled. So they have block schedules. So it was 2 days later. He goes to school. He has art class again. So I asked him when he gets home, I'm like, did anybody remember that you did that? And he looked at me and he says, no, ma'am, I don't guess so. And I said, so nobody said anything to you? Nobody laughed at you? Nobody even brought it up? No, ma'am. No, nobody said anything. We just did our art project, and the same people talked to me and whatever. I said, see? I told you. Nobody's that concerned. Nobody's really going to remember. I remember being that way, even with clothes, getting dressed, and trying to remember, like, oh my gosh, wait, I can't rewear this. When did I wear this last? Well, they're going to know. If I can't remember when I wore it last, nobody else is going to remember that I wore it at all, because they're just not that concerned. They're more focused on themselves than what you're doing. We did get to talking about getting embarrassed. And well, what if I get embarrassed? Of course, this is before the art class incident. And I had to have this conversation that I feel like nobody is having this conversation with our kids either. Embarrassment being embarrassed. That's a feeling. It's no different of a feeling than being happy or sad. Feelings are not controlled by somebody else. Nobody else can feel your feelings. They're yours. Nobody else can control your feelings except for you. Nobody can make you feel any kind of way unless you let them, unless you give them that ability. Think about the times that you have been angry at somebody. What if you had never given them the ability to make you angry? Honestly, you being angry stems from your own expectations that you had. You had expectations and somebody let you down. Somebody did not meet the expectation that you set. And it made you mad, or it made you disappointed, or made you sad. But unraveling that, those were your feelings. Those are your expectations. Nobody controlled that except for you. Nobody can make you embarrassed unless you let them. Nobody can hurt your feelings unless you let them. And that was exactly the point with the funky shirt. Wear it. But you're going to wear it. And you're going to be confident in it. And we are not going to have hurt feelings. We're making a choice. We're making a choice to step outside the box. That's our choice. Accepting a negative response, allowing it to make us feel a certain way, that's also our choice. So really establishing who we are on the inside and helping our children establish who they are on the inside so that they can have that foundational basis for their own confidence, helping them to see that everybody poops, if you will. We're all human. We're all going to make mistakes. And at the end of the day, it's kind of like that movie, She's Just Not That Into You. They just don't care that much about you. So do the thing. Say the thing. Be confident in what you're doing. Be confident in what you're saying. And then do it again and do it again and do it again until you're comfortable and confident, because that is what makes strong people. That's what makes confident adults. And confidence builds success. And I truly believe that. And I'd encourage you, if there was something that you wanted to do, a conversation you've been needing to have, but you've been worried about doing it because you're worried about getting embarrassed, worried about what somebody might say, take just a minute, and I mean just a minute, to do a little self-assessment and do it. Go say it. Start the thing, do the thing, say the thing. Keep doing it until you're comfortable and confident.